Hear you.
Perfect.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. That's sounding good.
How's your morning been?
No, I've been good, thank you. No, bit of an early start for me, 9:30 to be honest. But no, great to be here in the studio though. So of all places on campus, Expression Studios is probably the best place for me to be, I think.
Well, you live here, don't you? Let's be real.
Yeah, no, it's good fun. Everyone in X Media sort of lives in their respective sort of society space, don't they? I mean, you're always in the X TV office, aren't you?
Yes, yeah, both of them. We had one. We changed last year. We had the place in DH2, and then it moved to just outside the Forum, which is all right. I do miss the old office, I'm not going to lie. I miss having Expose outside and Raz as well, of course. But being able to open the door and, poke fun at the committee or wind them up or something, tease them. Or, because it's nice to take a break from editing or just staring at a computer screen and then wind someone up. But you don't really get that this at the time, now anyway.
Yeah, it's quite a nice looking space there. I never actually got to see your place last year though, but it did look quite fancy behind the glass doors up in DH2. So
yeah, they've definitely
nice.
They've done a great job of renovating the whole place.
Yeah,
it didn't look as clean as it does now. I mean, obviously they can't have it looking quite shitty and then come to it and it looks pretty good. How long have you been involved in Expression?
So it was actually from my first week at uni. So it's a bit of a weird story that I actually got involved in Expression in the first place, but it was actually when we used to have Freshers' Fair, we don't anymore, obviously, do we? But when in my first year we had Freshers' Fair, I sort of was walking around, looked at all the societies, so kind of obvious, obviously quite interesting. But obviously, a lot of societies all there at the same time. But then I think it was part of like a route. I sort of came down the stairs from DH2 where all the other stalls were, and I sort of saw the studio, and I thought, I'd always been interested kind of in like the media world, but I never really done anything with that interest, so I thought I might as well just go and have a little look. And I was shown around, found it very interesting in the studio. So then after that, sort of got my membership, went along to one of the news team shows, and then from that, sort of been really involved in Expression, really loved it. So yeah, I never sort of went into university being like, I'm going to join the student radio, because I know there are people in the station who do that, and even with say XTV and also with Expose and Raz and Photosoc, all the X Media societies, some people do go into, I think at the start of uni, don't they, and they sort of know that they want to sort of do that society. But for me, it was kind of just, I saw it and I thought, it looked quite interesting, and ended up being here now where I am today. So yeah, it's good fun.
Head of news as well.
Yeah, it's good fun. Alongside with Flo, who's absolutely amazing to work with, and sort of makes sort of a million times easier, because definitely, especially with like Guild Election Week, which we had not too long ago, there's a lot of work, a lot of emailing we had to do for that, and yeah, definitely it's good fun though. And also we got to work with XTV, which is really great fun as well. XTV is a great society to work with, so it's definitely a good project. But what got you into XTV? I know you do film. It's film and TV, isn't it? You do.
Yeah. So my interest started before I came to uni. I did a year out before I came, and I remember looking at the list of societies on the guild page and just seeing what interests me and what doesn't. I think during that time of coming to uni, I was thinking what really sticks out to me. The video stuff, filmmaking, that I really was interested in XTV and what they did. So I remember making a list of all these societies, and XTV was top of it, of course, 100% top of it. And I remember from the Freshers' Fair or Freshers' Week when I got involved, I was always front row, always asking questions, being quite annoying, having to being involved as much as you can. But I knew even before I came to uni, I wanted to be on committee. And to be honest, station manager was something that I had my eyes on before I came.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Wow, it worked out all right in the end. Then you got there in the end.
Yeah, well,
amazing.
I've been very lucky to have had that opportunity for 2 years. It's taught me a lot. Taught me more. I'll say more than my degree has. I don't
really.
Would you find that?
I would agree, actually. I think, and sort of, at least for me, I think, there's sort of a lot of kind of, I guess, you pick up a lot of knowledge in your degree course sort of about, that subject. I do philosophy and theology, so I pick up a lot of that knowledge. But I think actually you're right in terms of actual sort of skills and perhaps working with people, working on projects, sort of time management. I think a lot of that has come from what I've done in Expression, and actually sort of, I guess, actually speaking to people as well, sort of, especially when you're on broadcast, speaking on the radio, that you sort of have to script what you say, you have to know what you're going to say, or at least try and get it right, what you're saying. And so I completely agree. I think a lot of what I've learnt throughout university has probably been through Expression, or it definitely has been through Expression and sort of other societies I've been involved in. Sort of highlight for me was, and I know you were there as well last year, Tom, but it was at the SRA conference, the Student Radio Association conference of nationally all student radio stations across the country, or at least most student radio stations are part of this perhaps larger group, which then once a year holds a conference. Last year, very lucky to have it in Exeter, and it's an absolutely amazing 4 days, sort of learning about the industry, meeting other people from other unis who were just as interested as you were in radio and sort of all the workings of it. And it's a really, really, probably like the 3 or 4 of the best days of my time at university, to be honest, because it was absolutely amazing conference. That was just one highlight, and that's, I guess, sort of the opportunities that you get through societies, which you might get similar on your course, but I think actually on your course you learn a lot, but you don't actually get to apply it most of the time, at least in what I do, which is quite a theory-based course.
I know the feeling of the theory-based course. Definitely the SRA definitely gives you an insight into what the radio is about.
Oh, it's amazing.
I think the demo factor was probably my highlight of the whole entire thing. Having people's, well, there were little demos, weren't they? Like little clips of their shows and stuff.
Yeah.
And I guess it gives people the chance to get constructive feedback from people that are actually in the industry itself, or professionals that have done the work. But also, it sort of teaches you the importance of getting your work out there.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you do your own show, don't you? As well?
I do have my own show, Fridays 2 till 3. You can listen live. No, not plugging it too much, don't worry. But yeah, I do have my own show. And yes, you're absolutely right, though. Demo Factor was probably like the most, I think, honest that I guess that you saw the panel being about people's work. But I think it was arguably probably the most useful part of that conference, because you had sort of keynotes which were great. They were great at perhaps inspiring you in radio. But I think when you had Demo Factor, it was really them saying actually what you're not doing in radio, what you're getting wrong. And I think actually, you saw actually the person who won that, Chris Howard, he's now actually on Radio 1. He does early morning BBC Radio 1. So shows that if you do all right in it, you can go quite far. I think, very special case there. But equally, though, I think probably just as valuable for everyone else who, perhaps got the 4 buzzers, and so there were 4 judges and they sort of buzzed out when they sort of lost interest in it, just for some context. But it was, I guess, the moment that you sort of got people who went up there and had their clips played, sort of had that quite brutal feedback in a room of over 100 people. It was like, probably be the most insightful thing. And I know that there are a couple of people from Expression who their clips, their sort of, I guess their show reels got picked and they didn't get through. But actually, I think both of the people from Expression who got picked afterwards said how much they'd learned from that feedback. So it was like probably the most valuable part of that conference.
Well, a good friend of ours, Joe Terry, was one of those people.
He was. He
is absolutely insane. He is very, very hardworking man.
He is. He's probably one of the most hardworking people I know. He sort of puts. You can tell he has his sort of soul in sort of broadcasting, in the media. I can imagine him in like 10 years' time, probably doing some sort of like motorsport, like sort of show on TV or something like that. He's just so dedicated to it, and I think that's what you see a lot in Expression. I'm sure you see the same in XTV and perhaps in wider X media. Is in I could look at any of the 5 XT media societies. I believe it's 5.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Don't want to be tripping ourselves up on when we talk about X media, but I think you could look at any of those societies and find people in them who, probably the majority of the people in them who actually really love what they do, and they really put their passion into it. And you can tell from what they write, or what they might make as a film, or what they might broadcast on air in Expression. So you really do see that through, which I don't think you do see as often in other societies. I think you do see that passion in other societies, but you perhaps don't see it as clearly all the time, I think.
Well, I have 2 things for that as well. I think it really highlights the importance of extracurricular stuff and societies in general. That was one of the main things that drawn me to come to Exeter in the first place, actually, because I came here in September 2019 to visit a mate who studied here and actually graduated recently, 2 years ago. 3 years ago, actually. But I remember coming to the Freshers' Fair with no intention at all to come to university, and sort of falling in love with everything that was going around. I was like, oh my goodness, what is all of this? This is amazing. There's so many societies, on offer. And then it's also something that I also recommend people is there's 2 types of societies that people should probably try to join. Something that's creative, so the X-Media societies are one of those, and then something that's more, I would say, sportsy, fitness orientated. And I don't mean they have to be strenuous fitness-wise, like the powerlifting society or the calisthenics, but something like bench ball or a swimming society, like something that has a really nice community, but also they sort of focus their thing around, a bit of exercise and a bit of sports. Because everyone, at bench ball, for example, they have like an hour or 2 sessions, 2 or 3 times a week, and you go to these and you get a bit of a sweat on, but after that you're always having a laugh. No one's taking it too serious. No one's getting really offended or upset. But it creates that community that I believe societies do. And I feel like I don't know many other universities across the UK that do the society thing as well as Exeter does. I mean, there's probably some that do quite a lot. I know obviously with the SRAs we were mentioning earlier, they have their radio stations, but I don't know too well about their universities and what they offer in terms of societies. Did you ever look at societies at other universities?
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because when I was sort of deciding what university, I think you're absolutely right there, Tom, because sort of it's so important. I think to obviously we can sort of be in our bubble in X media and sort of be very career focused, but I think it's so important that you do have that breakaway. Which I think, as you say, at Exeter, there's such a range of societies. I think there's over 300 and loads coming out all the time as well, loads of new societies. I think when you look at other universities, I think you definitely do see some universities have very strong, perhaps TV stations, newspapers, radio stations, if perhaps they offer a journalism course, or they do perhaps quite a popular TV course, because you're naturally going to have people who do those courses are going to go straight into it. I know, for example, Fly, which is Nottingham Trent University, I believe, well, actually, when I was at an award ceremony back in November, I was speaking to their head of news there, actually, obviously the best committee role in any radio station, if I may say so myself, and she was saying about how they sort of had a full schedule between 8 a.m. and 11 p.m. 7 days a week, and that's partially down to, as she was saying, because the fact that they have a journalism course, they do a TV course. At Exeter we don't have that, so I think perhaps you do other universities perhaps see more people involved in those, in say, media societies, but I think more broadly I don't know many universities, if there's, I mean, potentially one such as York maybe, that have as many, such a wide variety of societies outside of the obvious media course societies. I don't think you see that perhaps as much at most universities.
Do you feel like the stuff that you've done with this society Expression has given you food for thought for what you want to do when you finish uni?
Yeah, definitely. After uni, sort of, I guess before uni I'd always had sort of an outside interest in at least maybe something in the media world, but I think it's no secret that it's a very hard world to get into. So it was always something I sort of had in the back of my mind through school and sort of in the perhaps lead up to come to university, but I never perhaps took it particularly seriously. I sort of, I followed the media a bit, but it's nothing perhaps too much. But I think after coming to university, joining Expression, perhaps speaking a bit on the radio, I sort of didn't really say much at one of my first few news shows. If you listen back, I pretty much said nothing. But sort of so you pick up those sort of skills, you perhaps get a bit more used to it, and perhaps I think now sort of I'm feeling it is perhaps an industry I'm very interested in going into. I think now I'm perhaps looking more at actually how can I get into that industry rather than should I go into that industry, which is a very hard thing to do because it is very much experience based, and you could go to university for 3 years studying a journalism course and do everything and still not get a job in the industry. So it is a very hard world to get into, but I think at least through my time at Expression, also through perhaps the little bits I've done with Expose and XTV as well, a tiny bit, sort of seeing that I guess you can get those skills and you can build yourself up throughout your time at university.
Yeah. How do you feel like that progress has come for you from not saying much on that first show to now having your own show and then obviously hosting 2 other shows twice a week as well?
Yeah. That's interesting. I think it was part of it. I think was just how welcoming I think the station Expression was. It was sort of never, although news is probably, I think people look at the news team and probably think, oh God, there's some very serious sort of always arguing with each other, always sort of having some sort of argument. We're not always like that. Sometimes we have, but not always. Most of the time we do have fun, and sort of is very sort of welcoming content team Expression to be in, and sort of it would say never taken too seriously. And I think actually, so you got to know the people in that team quite well, and it sort of made it much more relaxed, and so that kind of made you feel a bit more, I guess, happy, like welcome, I guess, in sort of speaking up a bit, and then sort of eventually going for committee, and now sort of now with my own show as well. So I guess it's a gradual thing, but I mean, I don't know. I know, so you said that for you is you kind of had your sort of mindset on you kind of wanted to be on committee from quite early, which is actually quite an interesting take with that. I mean, sort of for you, was it, I guess, you sort of knew quite early on that you wanted to at least be a bit more involved in XTV, but did you sort of find that you picked up a lot of skills throughout your time at university, sort of in XTV from just aside from perhaps the, how to, use the equipment and how to edit, do you think there's perhaps those other skills we were talking about earlier that you picked up?
Definitely the importance of leadership and being able to lead a team to get something done. Taking responsibility as well is a big thing. I mean, yeah, like we were saying earlier, extracurricular stuff and society stuff has done so much more wonders for my skill set and personality as opposed to what my degree does. My degree, don't get me wrong, there's some stuff that I've enjoyed, like the fact that we did a filmmaking module last year and I get to do it again for my dissertation. But other than that, the theory stuff, it teaches you obviously research and essay arguing, but I feel like in a way they're not really going to be useful skills like in the future. There's also the things that I've learned such as event management, creating socials, workshops, ex-media socials. They've been fantastic.
They've been great. They've been great.
Such a great fun to create. I've been lucky. So in last year I had George Obama, who was part of Exposé's committee. Me and her, we did quite a lot of the ex-media stuff, and that was just great. She did such a great job, and I learned so much from her because I knew she did that. She did like something like that for work experience before she came. No, she did her work experience in her placement year. That helped her with the skills for that. And then I learned from her for the importance of risk assessments, financial bits, the stress that comes with it as well. And yeah, the stress it's worth it. It's always worth it.
Definitely.
And then this year I've got James, who's done a fantastic job as well. I mean, he's your social sec as well.
He is. Sure. James is very good.
He's very on it. He's also Exposé's social sec as well, which is I was trying to get him to become XTVs as well, but I feel like it's probably too many for him.
His empire would expand too much.
It would. He would have a huge monopoly of the ex-media societies, which is not what we want, really. As much as we love James, and as much as we love him, we don't want him to be everywhere.
No, bless him. But yeah, you're so right. I think it's definitely sort of those experiences you pick up, and I guess it's then just perhaps getting into the industry. Sort of, perhaps I mean for you, sort of after uni, are you sort of quite set on what you want to do? Are you perhaps a bit more open to kind of ideas? Also, I assume you're kind of in something in the creative world, but sort of what for you is your kind of your path in, and I guess your goal for like the next few years?
My goal for the next few years is to apply for whatever comes my way. I'll be honest with you. I feel like, although I'm, on committee for a TV station and a filmmaking society, it's not really my passion anymore. I feel like learning the hard truths of the film industry is, it's a life. If you want to make it big, you have to sacrifice so much, and I'm not willing to make all those sacrifices. You sacrifice a lot of your time and your money, and that's something that I just don't think I could do. I feel like the time that we have is so important, and things for me, like my grandparents or my aunts and uncles, my family, I would rather have a shittier job that I don't, not particularly hate, but not particularly love, and be able to see them once in a while, as opposed to couch surfing, trying to make it big in the film world. But I feel like, I've learned. I don't know about what I want to really do after uni. I think it was take my granddad's advice, which he gave to me a couple of months ago, which was, while you're younger, you haven't got much responsibility. Apply for as many things as you can, try many things as you can, and eventually you will find something. Because you have to accept the fact that you're probably going to do a lot of things that you don't want to do before you find something that you want to do. And, to me, that is fantastic advice.
That's good advice.
Yeah, I think it's advice that we also, I think third years need to know, third years and just final years in general need to know more, because there's always that feeling of, what am I going to do with my life? What will I find something I want to do? Will I ever find that chosen career that I want to do? But I think we need to sort of accept the fact that we're going to do a lot of stuff that we don't want to do to get where we want to go. My ideal goal is to work with a graduate job for another year or two, and then save up money from that, buy some like photography cameras or video cameras, and do like a side business sort of thing. Because I've learned a lot about videography in terms of your own business, as opposed to going out and making it in the film industry. That's what I've learned and enjoyed. But then once those 2 years come up after my graduate job, I think it would be just go for travelling for a little bit.
That's very fair, yeah.
What about yourself? Have you got much planned?
Yeah, I think I'm still perhaps trying to work out exactly what I want to do. And I think it's, I guess to an extent, partial what you say, because I think it's very easy to, at least especially when you're at university, when you've got, days and days and weeks, sort of, in between holidays and when you're on campus, I think in the university bubble, to sort of be very sort of overly ambitious. And I think it's so important that you have that ambition in what you want to do. But equally, I think it's also very easy to sort of be like, oh, I want to be presenting the BBC News at 10 within 15 years of graduating. But I think for me, I think sort of I want to do something in the media / journalism / something in that bubble. But I'm also, I guess, almost, I don't think anyone really understands in full the amount of opportunities that are out there until you actually go out into that industry and start working in it. And I think personally, I know what I do like and I don't like. And I think for me, when I graduate in, which is a bit weird saying this, about a year and a half's time, come quite quickly. I guess for me, it'd be trying to at least get some way into the industry, whatever form that may be. Again, obviously broadcast is sort of where I've always been, but wherever that may be, again, it's, you can't really make too many choices when you're first starting out. And I guess getting into that and trying to work out what I like, what I don't like, and taking it from there. So I think, in 5 years' time, obviously love to be doing something where I, sort of my voice on the radio, or, might be writing in something, or reporting on something, doing perhaps something meaningful, but also what that is, sort of, I think you only sort of know once you do start working in that industry, because again, it's so easy to, when you're at university and you've got those 3 years of, quite a lot of free time to sort of, I guess, put yourself in a box about what you want to do, and you might see, one job that you really like the idea of, but I think it's only once you get out there and start working that you know what you do and you don't like.
Would you ever consider doing Audible, like books for Audible, because you've got a very nice, sexy, deep voice that maybe might be good for that sort of thing?
I don't think my voice is that good enough. I haven't had enough confidence in my voice on radio. But maybe if I fine tune it a bit, maybe I could be doing some audiobooks. I think there's definitely a lot of people, I think, in Expression who should at least consider a career in narrating or audiobooks, because there's some very good on-air voices in this station, I must say. So yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of potential out there in the station.
Do you think your show's helped you develop that voice and be able to speak? Because that's actually one of the reasons why I wanted to start, is why I've started this show, is this podcast even, is to improve upon my speaking, because I've mentioned to you before about having Asperger's and stuff and sort of struggling with speaking throughout my life. But I feel like people have told me, who've done their own shows and podcasts, that you actually improve a lot over the course of your time that you do it. I was going to ask, how has it improved you?
Yeah, definitely. It's a sort of, I remember I put off getting my own show. So all throughout last year, I thought, I'll do it next term, and it sort of got to the end of the year. And I sort of thought, actually, I rather would have just got on with it and done it, because I thought, I can't, get my presenter training done. But it's actually not even that hard to learn. And so I think part of it, I was a bit worried what I'd actually talk about for an hour on a show. But I've only got a 2-hour show last term. Which, and sort of I don't have to do the planning for it, sort of have my own sort of theme. It's it's called The Top Story, so it's a sort of university / student sort of news and politics show. So it's sort of looking at, I guess, in depth, me looking at quite a lot of information surrounding perhaps quite big student based stories and university based stories. And so for that, I sort of, I had some experience speaking about that before, but when you're doing a panel show for the news team, because that's what we do with our 2 shows, X Focus and News Hour, they're sort of panel-based show. So you have a room in the middle room in our studio, if anywhere between 3 and 8, 5, 8 people coming along. That sort of, you can get away with perhaps not saying as much because you just hand over to someone else to do the talking. But obviously this was very much me. I had to plan what I was going to say. I had to say it on the air. And from that, I think I learned a lot about sort of the tone, how I sort of pace myself, how I perhaps hosted a show. I had to choose my songs for the song breaks as well, so whether they were good or not, who knows, but sort of working out sort of how to sort of perhaps explain things in depth as well, because sort of in a 2-hour show I might only cover maybe 4 or 5 stories, so it was going into quite a lot of depth about how sort of my views on it and sort of what people's reactions to a story might be. So definitely I picked up a lot of that from doing my own show, where I had to speak for that 2-hour show. Probably quite good in quite good news this year. This term, I should say, it's now you can only have 1-hour shows at least in the week. So now cut that down a bit, which actually sort of quite glad as well, because I think it actually makes me be a bit more concise as well, rather than just going on for 2 hours. So it definitely picks up a lot from it. And I think there's so much you can sort of learn from hosting your own show, obviously in terms of actually using the tech as well. Yeah, definitely. And so everyone I've spoken to in the station who's had their own show, whether they've just started out or they've had it for a couple of years, sort of all saying actually when you have your own show where it is just you, or it's you might be you having a conversation with someone, when it's one or two people in a room, it is very much on you to sort of pick up the skills, and I think you do it quite quickly once you've started. So yeah, definitely a lot you can learn from it.
I love the creative side of it. You have to think of something to talk about or think of something to really keep this conversation going along, and it's a great tool to learn, really, in terms of wanting to be more creative about yourself. And we've always spoke about it earlier, the X Media stuff. Yeah, it's very, very interesting what you can come up with.
Definitely,
especially like in the space of an hour.
Yeah, definitely. Probably my favourite recently was with Matchmakers, which is some context. The Raising and Giving Society at the university, alongside X Media Society, sort of held a sort of speed dating sort of event, I guess you could call it, ahead of Valentine's Day. It's great fun. I wasn't on any dates, but I was just doing sort of the sound for it. I was and at least some very brave people who are happy to have their dates recorded. I sort of did the audio for that, and then so I put together a sort of 2-hour show that went out on Valentine's Day. Actually, completely different to what I've done, because sort of normally I do quite sort of news-based shows, and so it's actually quite fun to also do a different presenting style. And actually, from doing that, I learned so much in sort of how to actually be have a bit more of a relaxed presenting style, sort of have song breaks, that sort of thing. So it's actually, even though I'd done my show for a term and a half up until a couple of weeks ago when I did this special show, actually the amount I had learnt from doing that one-off Valentine's show was as much as I'd probably learn in the time of doing my show. So actually there's even still, you could be doing student radio for 3 years, but there's still, you could do one day, you could go and do something completely different, and you could learn so much from that experience. Even being here on the podcast with you, Tom, it's a different way of talking, quite in depth about sort of things. It's there's so many different ways, so different skills you can pick up from different show styles as well, which is another thing you do learn.
What did you like about Matchmakers? It's a shame you didn't get to go on the date.
I didn't. I know I was too busy doing the recording, but I thought it was actually a very, very good turnout. I thought Jess and Chelsea, as well as obviously the rest of the RAD committee, and also XTV and Expression people involved, did a great job. And I thought it was, for me from the sidelines, I thought it actually went really well. I think we had some second dates as well, so it was. I know exactly. So that's good news. And obviously it's all for charity as well, which was sort of the best part of it as well, I guess. But it was actually a very fun evening. It sort of was. I thought, I don't know what you made of it, but I thought it was just a very sort of relaxed, but also was also just a bit of fun as well.
Yeah, I think that's what's important at the end of the day. It was a bit of fun, Obviously, some people came in for dates and wanted to meet some people, which is nice, But at the end of the day, it was for charity. It wasn't. People didn't need to go in there being, absolutely heartbroken that they didn't find anything. At the end of the day, they could have had a bit of fun. I know some people came along with friends to support them, and some people got absolutely wasted before they got there. I'm not, not going to call out anyone from the XTV committee, but there's a certain someone, bless her, that turned up a little bit. A bit too much.
No.
Yeah. Do you think you guys would do it again next year, Matchmakers?
Oh, definitely. I think whatever sort of capacity we do it in, I think it'd be absolutely. I mean, last year when Reese and Georgia did it, and I know other people in X Media as well were involved, it was absolutely amazing. This year as well, equally as amazing. So I think we've got a tradition now going where every year you're going to have a Matchmakers, and I think at some point you're going to get perhaps a marriage out of it or something like that. So it's going to perhaps we'll need to get an invite to the wedding, I think, whenever that happens. But definitely it's got to be something I feel that is going to be part of the calendar, a bit like you look at other things at the university which are you sort of a part of the university's calendar, like varsity. You've got with the sort of ski slope we had on campus just this weekend. I mean, that's less regular, but so those things which sort of go around on campus, which are just part of the calendar, and I think having Matchmakers being part of that would be absolutely amazing.
Do you think you'll find yourself on committee again next year then?
I'd like to be an Expression committee, yeah. Not too sure what I want to do
Station?
yet. No.
Deputy?
Don't know yet. Obviously, a lot of work goes into, I mean, you don't need me to tell you that, Tom, but a lot of work goes into any of those roles. So sort of still working out what I want to do. I think I definitely want to be involved in Expression next year, whatever I do, and also just wider, more in X Media. It's also my final year at university, so I want to make the most of it. So definitely planning to be involved in some way in committee, but not too sure what yet. But obviously there's so many roles on the committee anyway, and sort of, I mean, for you, it must, station manager must take up a lot of your time, I can imagine.
It's basically a full-time job.
Yeah.
Ali will probably be able to tell you. Annabelle and Livy, Amelie and Jamie probably will tell you from Expose. Oscar from Photosoc can agree. Esther, yeah, it is basically a full-time job, but like I've said earlier, I don't regret it at all. It comes with the stress, and the stress is worth it. You know, at the end of the day, we're here to do as much as we can. You know, do that, and like you said, go out in your final year with a bang. Sort of thing. That's what I'm trying to do this year as well. Just, you know, it's actually quite scary to realise we've only got 5 weeks left of term 2.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's mad.
We've got not too long left. I'm looking forward to it though. Looking forward to handing in my final submission and then sort of just moving on with plans. If that's an internship, work experience, and then hopefully a graduate job.
Hopefully,
if I get them, it'd be nice. I'd be very, very excited and happy to get one.
Definitely. Well, you definitely go out with a bang with XTV. You know, 2 years on committee, you've done a great job. So definitely going out with that legacy anyway. So yeah, wherever that takes you next, have to wait and see. But no, definitely leaving with a good status afterwards.
Thank you, man. That's nice. That's nice of you to say. Do you think you do another show next year, or do you keep going on what you've got?
I think I'll keep the same show. Something I would like to do though, sort of perhaps when I've got a bit more time later this term, or probably in term 3 actually, is I want to have sort of it's completely different from what I've done, but not sort of having a kind of music-based show where I sort of just have a little bit like a commercial radio kind of style show. Sort of what that might be, not too sure yet. So sort of keep your eyes and ears peeled. But so I want to do something just to have a bit of fun, because sort of again, it's sort of amount that you sort of have learned from doing. You know, as I said, that 1 2-hour special show on Valentine's Day was sort of so much, and I think just perhaps a different presenting style I'd quite like to do, just because sort of again doing news all the time, it's great fun, but also I just want to have quite a more relaxed show, do something a bit more fun, but equally keep my show as well. But something as well that I've been doing a little bit this year is also I've been involved in some of the theatre societies at the uni though.
Yeah.
So been doing a bit of sort of at least trying to be learning a bit more about sound and sort of the tech side of with musical theatre. Also, I'm not in the cast. Don't worry, I'm not a very good singer, no, unfortunately. But yeah, just been doing a bit of that as well, which has been great fun. I'm looking forward to next term, where I am doing sound design for Made in Dagenham with Footlights, which should be very exciting. Really looking forward to that. It's really looking to be a really exciting team as well, part of it as well. So that's going to be sort of doing the sound effects, sort of the mixing, the mic plots, sort of kind of everything to do with sound. Also miking up the band. I think there's like going to be I believe like a 12 or 18 piece like band / orchestra as well as the cast. So it's going to be quite a challenge and quite a lot to pick up on, but I'm looking forward to the challenge. So something completely different to radio, but still in that sort of remit of sound. So something I'll try that this year, and sort of going back to the societies at uni, sort of being an opportunity that you would probably never get outside of university, or be very hard to get outside of university because you need that experience, or you just wouldn't have the time to do it in the first place. So definitely something that I'm looking forward to doing next term. So if you go along to that and it sounds awful, you know who to blame anyway. So
I'm sure you'll smash it, man.
Oh, thank you.
I'm sure you'll smash it. Well, you did sing in the rain, didn't you?
I did.
How did that go?
Yeah, that was good. So I was sound assistant for that one. So sort of worked with a very, very good sound designer. In fact, I picked up a lot from that. Yeah, that was Singing in the Rain, which was at Northcote, again with Footlights, and also last term I did Ordinary Days, which was a Shotgun, and also Eigengrau with Yuko. So quite a range ones. Learned so much from each different show. So each different show, sort of what I had to do was quite different. Sort of the first one was sort of a sung-free musical. The second one was sort of acted out, and then the third, Singing in the Rain, was kind of a mix of both. And so actually learned so much from each one. And again, every time I walked away with, knowing so much more than I had done going into it, and also had so much fun. It was really great group to work with, both the cast and also the other sort of creatives and production team. So it's a really, really great opportunity I had, and I really enjoyed it. And I think, as we were saying earlier, actually at the start, how sort of what you can get from societies at university, it's again, realistically, I'm not sort of looking to go into the musical theatre world, but sort of this sort of amount of, I guess, perhaps the sort of skills, those what people would always call those soft skills, I've perhaps learned from those opportunities has been really great, and I've really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to, say, the rest of this year, trying to do as much as I can before I go into third year, because I probably won't have as much time next year to be sort of, giving up a week at a time to go off and do a theatre production. But yeah, it's been really good fun. So yeah, looking forward to what's coming next.
I always find it so impressive what the cast can do in a theatre performance. Like how much they have to remember, and how they remember the lines off by heart is incredible. What's that perspective like from being behind the scenes of the tech? Because I'm guessing your job is sort of to make sure the audio sounds perfectly fine. Do you have to prefix that, or do you have to do it live?
So it depends. So when I did, I won't go too much into the tech details for the 99% of people listening who probably won't care. But sort of when I did Ordinary Days, which is with Shotgun Theatre, that was sort of just using what is an analog desk, so just literally moving the faders up live. And so that was very much having to pay attention, having to sort of preempt what was coming up next, and sort of, I guess, sort of concentrating quite hard throughout the entire show. Eigengrau didn't really had some sound effects, so I had to follow quite closely the scripts. So again, I had to sort of keep a close eye on what was going on. With Singing in the Rain, I was doing the sound effects side of it, so again, sort of having to keep a close eye on what was going on in the scripts. And I guess with what's come out of Made in Dagenham, that will be sort of programmed in onto a sound desk. So the idea will sort of be I'll have individual what are called scenes on the sound desk, which is sort of effectively where you have a sort of a preset kind of fade. So when you have a fader on on a sound desk on how high or how low it go, you sort of have a preset. So when you go between scenes, they move themselves to what you set it up for, perhaps a day before. So I don't know how I'll explain that, but basically it being that sort of with Made in Dagenham, it will very much be sort of set it up in the days before. So during the show, what you really have to do is just sort of go between the scenes and sort of make sure it's all right. So makes it sound very easy, but it's not, because there's quite a lot you've got to do, and I haven't done a huge amount of that before. So it's going to be quite a challenge, but I'm looking forward to that challenge. And yeah, definitely should be good fun. But yeah, it's definitely, though, when you look at the cast, you sort of see how sort of patient they are, how much they know. Again, you say they just seem to know all the songs, all the sort of lines from it, all the stage directions. It's not just, and I think something that I didn't really realise until I was with Footlights in Northcote, which was it's not just remembering the lines and singing the songs, it's also the stage directions. You've got costume changes, you've got props you've got to change, and there's so much that you've got to remember. And it's also something else I didn't perhaps really realise is how many people actually work on a show, because it's not just the cast and perhaps one person doing the sound desk at the back. It's a lot of people, probably close to the number of people in the cast who actually work on the show. Just the amount of roles there are in terms of, sort of getting sets set up, getting costumes, set design, so much. So I guess you don't appreciate that when you're going along to the theatre and watching a show. But yeah, it's absolutely amazing opportunity. I really, really enjoy it though.
It's always interesting to see as well, looking at the software or hardware for the first time and looking at it and thinking, oh my God, this is so scary. What is going on? How do I use all these buttons? And then, maybe like a couple of weeks later or a month later, or even like after some training, you realise actually this is quite easy to do. I remember when you taught me, a good teacher by the way,
thank you,
how to use Myriad. With the basics of it as well. It's similar with like Premiere Pro and Audition, just learning how to use a software. The best way to really do it is just practically.
Yeah.
And like you said, you've sort of picked up this experience across the shows that you've done, and I believe you said you went from a sound assistant, and then next term you can be the big boy. That's
the plan. But obviously, see how. So if it sounds awful in the show, then you know who to complain to, basically. But yeah, it's there is, and I guess that's part of the fun of it, is that you do learn sort of how much to do. Even as you say, sort of a year ago, I didn't really have a clue how to even use our own station sound sort of desk and our own station equipment, and so sort of learning and sort of being, and obviously all being down to people who taught me, in sort of societies in Exeter, the Technical Theatre Society at the university, a great group, sort of learning from people in there how to sort of actually use the equipment, and sort of so many parts you don't realise until you actually do a show and it actually all comes together. But yeah, you're absolutely right. And it's the same with, I guess, for you for video editing. There's so much that you sort of pick up on, and sort of, but again, that takes time. But it's sort of when you look back, however many months down the line, you sort of realise how much more you know than when you started.
How many episodes have you done of your show so far?
I started about 3 weeks into first term, so I've probably done about 12, 13, 14 episodes, I guess. I'm not too sure, but around about that number.
Do you remember, have you seen that progress and how much you have progressed?
Yeah, definitely. So my first show, I sort of, if that was my presenter training test, I probably would have failed it because of how many mistakes I made tech-wise. And the sort of first couple of shows, I sort of had my intro sort of play at a weird time, and sort of tech-wise, it was also quite a steep learning curve. And there was also as well sort of how I sort of planned my shows, how I presented my shows. I learned so much from that. And sort of you always see it when people have their first show on Expression, they sort of almost like write almost like an auto cue script of every single word they're going to say. I did exactly the same. I sort of had every last detail of all the points I was going to make, and so it sort of sounded like I was reading off a script. But sort of then you sort of, as you kind of get more used to it, you sort of then, I guess, at least I found anyway, that I sort of picked up on sort of points to make, and perhaps had more brief notes, and sort of, I guess, you sort of learn those skills as you go along. So it definitely seems like, obviously still a lot more to learn though. Still not 100% with sort of the production side, and also sort of guess how I explain things as well. That's not 100%, and so that's why I sort of wanted to do the show, was just to obviously have my own show, which would be quite cool, but also to actually force myself to speak for an hour on a show and present and produce a show, because it's something I actually wanted to sort of get on and actually do at some point.
Yeah, I mean, the bullet point thing will come hand eventually, with making the notes. I feel like even now I'm sort of not scripting as much. I mean, I'm not really scripting. Yeah. I made some bullet points about what we could talk about. Even with Mateus in the last episode, I made some bullet points, and then we just ended up going on for almost 2 hours, which was great. It really helps when you also, because you bring a lot to the conversation as well, which is, you've done a good job.
No, thank you. Yeah.
The mistakes is quite funny, looking back and cringing. A good one I've made is actually, this is supposed to be the 4th episode, but this is actually going to be the 3rd episode, because I did one with James, Mr. Allen, we talked about earlier, yeah. But I lost the cart ID.
Oh, did it completely get lost?
Yeah, it's completely got lost. So I had to re-record it with James, which would be quite funny. But yeah, it taught me to make a note system with logging the cart ID on my phone, and then obviously checking where it is on here.
Yeah. And
then another mistake I made was with Terry's episode. I was actually going to have it filmed with cameras, but I realised I made audio settings errors, so now I couldn't really synchronize it with the video feed itself. So eventually I just screw it, I'm just going to go with the audio instead. It's going to save me time editing. Time is, when you come to find in third year, mate, is not actually that much available, because you'll be doing so much. No. So actually just turn this to basically an audio feature only is actually done me wonders as well. Because all I do is, after this, or probably not after this one, but I'll come back, go through Audition, and then chuck up on Spotify or something. So yeah, making mistakes is very important in this process. I even with XTV and using the cameras, God, it's quite embarrassing. Looking at the first documentary I made before I actually started the role of station manager, I did one in end of first year. I had no idea how to use the camera and the focus. It was quite embarrassing looking back at it. But it's nice to see that progress over time. And I really do hope people don't get really put off by how, intimidating it is to make these mistakes. Because we all do them. Like you said, you didn't know how to really do much of the tech last term, and then you came to be a teacher. Look at that.
Taught a few people, but you do learn it. It's sort of, as you say, there's sort of parts you pick up, and sort of it's not overnight. You sort of learn, and even say still, I still make mistakes. If you listen to the start of my show, often there's quite a few seconds of dead air before I start, because I get a bit wrong, and it's not going to be like Radio 1 or Radio 4 sort of a podcast, or a global player podcast. It's never going to be that perfect, because you're still learning, you're still sort of new to this, and I think that's such an important thing that you sort of pick up and realise from it.
I do also like the idea that we do these shows for ourselves. They're not really done to build up, built to submit them to employers and stuff. I mean, maybe you are going to, but I know for certain I'm not going to submit this to any employer. This is more for me to, like I said, improve my speaking skills, but also to promote stuff that I do in my own time, and then, come and face that feeling of it's quite scary to actually push your stuff out there. Like I remember before I submitted Joe's episode online and started making the Instagram and stuff for it, I was sort of shitting myself a little, of like, oh my god, I've got to push all this online. People are going to judge me and laugh at me and stuff. But most people sort of really don't care. I'll be honest with you. And actually, a lot of people come forth and tell me it's actually a pretty cool idea.
Yeah,
so
it's good.
It's actually quite fun. It's quite fun doing it as well. So
yeah, it's a good idea, and I think for me, I'm sort of still sort of getting exactly what I want this format to be, and so it's still very much for me. I haven't actually published any of my episodes yet, even though I sort of say I will. I'm sort of still trying to get it right, get my format right before I put it out for the world to sort of see. And so it is quite nice to have that sort of small part of the world, and you can sort of talk about as much as you want to, sort of to people how much you do your show, which is I think what's so nice, because that's why you sort of see, at least in Expression, so many people come through, and join and get their own show. Some people promoting it everywhere, they're using it as a portfolio for their career, but then you also have some people who just come on air to have fun and don't really promote it because they just want to have the experience of their own radio show. And there's so many, you could, I don't know, I wouldn't know how many exact number of shows we've got, but if you spoke to everyone in Expression who had a show, they'd all give you a slightly different reason as to why they have a show. And I think that's what makes it so fun, and something you don't really see, elsewhere in the media world. But when you're at university and student radio and student media, you do see that opportunity for a bit more fun. I mean, I don't know, I guess in XTV, if sort of you have a similar thing where, I'm sure some people in XTV are sort of wanting to go into the industry, sort of build up their portfolios, but I can also imagine equally you have people who are just there for fun and to sort of learn a new skill.
Yeah, it's nice to have that. It's nice to have the people that are definitely wanting to go into the industry, because it's helped with actually our dissertation stuff that we're doing coming up for the next couple of weeks. So we do our own film, so we make a short film between 3 and 8 minutes, give or take 10% as well, of course, and put in crew calls into the group chat asking who can do camera work, who can do lighting, who can do sound, etc., etc. And I even say, if people don't know, I will teach you how to use this equipment. And a lot of people have come forth asking if they can get a part of it, and it's so nice to see that. Do you? How many shows have you actually been on that are not yours? Like other than the news shows, because you said there's a lot going on. I know Anna does their stuff. Both Annas do their show. There's a drama show as well, isn't there?
There is a drama show. Yeah, that's right. That's
Beth does one.
Beth and Guy, do that. So which they look at sort of theatre Exeter shows. Do you mean shows that I've been on?
Yeah, how many have you actually been on?
Ooh.
Not in like a total number, because that'd be quite hard to remember.
Yeah. So I was a guest. So actually on Anna and Anna's show, Agony Anna, I was a guest phoning into their show. They do a phone in, which is quite fun. I got the honour of doing that last week, which was quite fun. I've been on, I know James's show I've been on as a guest. I've been on a handful, and so again, every time you get onto them, everyone presents slightly differently. You sort of walk away, sort of like you learn something a bit new, and I guess what's also quite nice as well is that just more broadly with sort of radio, at least in Expression, it is quite nice that if you have someone who's got a show after you, you're always like in that sort of changeover when you're. At least you're handing over the studio, sort of have a little talk about what are you talking about in your show today, what's your show about, and sort of you learn a little bit about sort of people's show. And I know actually quite often that people in the station do listen to each other's shows, sort of hype them up, sort of promote them to each other, which is actually really nice. And you sort of that's natural, that's not sort of forced in any way, but you do quite often see, say in the station, people listening to other people's shows, getting involved in them, and I think that's really nice, because it's sort of we're all here for fun, really, at the end of the day. No one's got 5,000 listeners or, Radio 1's millions of listeners at any point on our Expression sort of broadcast player. So it's just nice to sort of have that community as well, which you, again, don't see in every society, but it's quite nice to see here in Expression.
How long do you think you'll stay here in term 3 to keep doing the shows and stuff?
Ooh, how long I'll stay here? Well, probably as long as I can, to be honest, just because it's so much fun. I think, definitely, as long as nothing comes up, I actually need to go off and do some work, or probably do something worthwhile for my career. I think definitely as long as I can, because it's so fun. Sort of doing shows, definitely do as much as I can, because also when you go away for the summer, I found last year sort of I was like missing Expression. I didn't think I would do, but even though I was sort of, perhaps talking to people in the station that I was friends with, but you sort of miss coming to the station and being on air. It's not really the same. I don't know if you find the same if you're ever away from uni, in the summer, whatever. If you sort of find you miss being at uni, sort of doing XTV stuff, because you can sort of be in meetings while you're away and plan things. But when you're actually on campus and when you're in the studio in the station, that's when sort of you have the most fun.
I think it's more of the city and the people that I miss. I obviously love the XTV stuff, creating projects, having events, organising stuff as well. I like the challenge that comes with it. I think that's something that I love doing. Definitely the people, man. Like this office that you guys got here, the studio you've got here, not the studio specifically, but the whole entire Expression studio is actually probably my favourite one, I would say, out of the three. I really do enjoy the fact that you've got a big table. You can come in, Mikhail could be in there, we can bully each other, or it could be me and Joe, James, you, Flo, whoever. It's such a nice little community you guys have got here, and it's so I think it can be a bit overlooked as well by people that don't do any society stuff at all, really, which is a shame. It really is a shame.
Yeah, there's not. I know. I can't remember this. I believe it's just under half of students at uni aren't in a guild society. That doesn't include AU though. I should say, but there are quite a sizable number of students who are involved in societies, and I think one of the great things about uni is that you have got 3 years or 4 years to do whatever you want to, and that's not always societies. So I've been heavily involved in societies at uni, but I know people who aren't, and they have equally good time at university. But I guess for me, sort of as you say, Tom, sort of the community you have in the station. Sometimes you'll walk in here and there's like no one in here. Other times you walk in, there's like 10 people in the middle room. There's no in between really. You never know who's going to be in here, which is actually quite fun. But you sort of know that when you go in there, it's quite a nice escape from your degree. Though it's just quite a nice way to get away. I would never come into the studio to do my degree or do my work just because. Well, two reasons. First of all, I think it's just nice to have that sort of separation, but also two, just because within about 15 minutes, someone will walk through the door and I'll probably start talking to them. So it's not very practical, but it's just, I think that's the main thing. It's just that it's such a community, it's such a nice space. And we say we're very lucky to have a place that is our society. You don't really have, no other society outside of X Media has that, I don't think. So it's, at least unless I'm wrong, but it's not, it's such a unique thing to have, and it's really special. And I think sort of in a couple of years' time we'll be celebrating, I believe actually it's actually the 18th of February, I believe. In a couple of years' time we'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary, and sort of you look back at Expression's history and you sort of probably the reason why it's gone on for so long, and it's sort of not just Expression, by the way, but just radio stations generally around the country. We're one of the older ones, but you also just look at other radio stations in the country, and perhaps probably the reason they've gone on for such a long time is just because of how perhaps the community they create within universities. There's so many, not so many I should say, but I've spoken to a few alumni who have come back to do talks in my sort of time at university, and it's probably the media societies, including XTV, Expose and RAS and Photography Society, probably examples of societies on campus probably where they have the most alumni being engaged in them, and perhaps just coming back just because they love their time at the university so much. I know one alumni, well, at least two alumni members who come back quite often to give career talks, but I think, to be honest, they probably want to come back to have a look around the studio, to be honest. It's just, it's really, I guess I perhaps don't appreciate it as much. I don't perhaps realise when you sort of do talk to people who don't do student media, and I guess you don't have that place on campus, that place at university that is kind of your place away from everything.
The final thing I'm going to ask you before we wrap up, because we're running out of time, why do you think people don't really get involved in societies? My hypothesis is that it's probably people who have a lot of anxiety around it, and they're quite intimidated by getting out of their comfort zone and doing it.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. It's gone very quickly as well, I must say, our conversation. I think you're right. I do agree. Actually, I think people think, I need to have, if I want to join XTV, I probably need to know how to, talk on camera or how to edit a video, and same for other societies. And perhaps generally people might think there's not much benefit from societies, and I think I think especially in Freshers Week, you get thrown in and you sort of, there's so much going on. It'd be very, very easy to not really do societies in Freshers Week because you'll be so busy with other things going on. Sort of, when you first move into your accommodation, you've perhaps got your course, and I guess perhaps once you've started out at university without joining societies, I know quite a lot of people do join sort of midway through term, and perhaps later in the year. Especially in Expression, we've got a lot of people who do come in later on in the year compared to other societies. But I guess it's a lot of people perhaps, so once you perhaps start to get, you've never been in a society, you perhaps don't see the benefit that a society can bring. And I think as well with societies, it's not, you don't get the best out of it by just going along once. If you come along to, one, perhaps core society in Freshers Week, and you perhaps think, oh, it's all right, but actually it's not the best. I guess it takes time, I think, for you to actually get that benefit out of societies at university. And I guess, I don't know what you think about that, Tom, but I think at least for me, I guess once people start out at university without being in a society, they don't perhaps see the sort of, I guess, the benefit it can bring.
The benefits of society is, it's profound, really. We'll both look back on when we graduate from uni and look back on it, and in years to come, I would hope, and really appreciate that we actually got stuck in and did stuff for the committee stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Tom, tell listeners where and when they can find your stuff.
Oh, so if you didn't get too annoyed by my voice today, you can listen to me. I with Flo, my head news. I co-present X Focus and News Hour, which is on Monday and Thursday at 5 to 6 p.m. live on Expression, but also you can catch up later wherever you get your podcasts. And so I also produce my own show, Top Story, which is Fridays 2 till 3 p.m.
And what about your own personal social media? If
you
want
of
to
course.
Advertise that.
Absolutely. Or if you want to mess me up, my Instagram is tlangers. It's quite an old username, but with a Z on the end.
Perfect. Thank you, Tom.
Tom, thank you so much. Honoured to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.